In the Kush Himalaya, about 5,000 years ago, it was, and the current landscape of our country, of our region, the dynamic landscape, I would say, they are the result of several interventions about starting 5,000 years back in terms of cropping, livestock farming, and our cultural similarities. So they actually resulted in the current landscape of the HKH region. And out of these landscape, these two important sources like water and land, they are of very much importance for the region, being land and water the prime resources for agriculture. And this agriculture will lead to the food security in the region. And as a whole, agriculture is obviously the largest user of water. And overall, at the global scale, about 70% of the total water is used for the agriculture. And some 40% of the global food which is produced, that is from irrigated agriculture, and the rest is from the arid and other sources. But this 70% of total withdrawal of water for agriculture is actually varying from country to country. For instance, in Pakistan, we are using more than 90% of water for agriculture, and productivity is again very low. When we talk about the agriculture, the basic requirement to produce the food and water is fulfilling that requirement to do the agriculture. But there are several competitions with other sectors like industry, household, and these users and these trade-offs between agriculture and other water users, they have impacted very negatively on the environment as well as our food security. When we talk about the food and water supply, they are the key human sector, and that is why I have picked up these two. And mostly, these are the two factors which are exposed to the climate change, like food and water supply. And climate change impacts, they are already very obvious in several countries, and we are currently facing, the Pakistan, in the more recently in the form of devastating floods, we are still experiencing and bearing the brunt of that climate change impacts on spontaneous flooding and very huge losses of infrastructure, lives, agriculture, livestock, all the billions of dollar losses. This is what we are facing. And if we did not respond as a unanimous feature of the world, then this may come to the other country next year or maybe in the coming decade. And this is not going to stop because we have created it, we are responsible for it, and we can't avoid it in the future. So our job of academia is to avoid the unmanageable. If it was unmanageable, then we must avoid it, climate change. And if it is happening, then we must manage it. This is our job. And this is what we are supposed to teach and nurture our future generations. Along with the food supply, the agriculture is also the major source and sink for the greenhouse gases through different land use changes, land management, and livestock production, etc., etc. And what we want from agriculture, if we are spending too much precious resources like land and water and other inputs, then it must meet the needs of the present and future generations from its different products and services, and keeping in view the environmental health, social, and economic equity that are the three pillars of sustainable development. So we don't need to exhaust our resources. We have to do the practice, whatever we are, in a sustainable way. And this is the one of the topic of our discussion today. So let's start with water. There is no doubt it is a precious source, and for sustainable development goals, it is the key SDG which is hovering, and all other SDGs are hovering around it, which in the coming slides I will explain that how other SDGs are linked with the water. And And if we address the water security, then all other SDGs will be addressed to some extent, if not to the maximum. And when we realize that sustainable development goals, water is precious for it, then also it is important to eradicate the poverty. This is a well-established fact, and all the people who are engaged with it, who are dealing with such scenarios, they understand it, that if there is no water, no life, no agriculture, no food, and no concept. When we talk about the water, then what we have, these are the natural resources in our region. In HKH, these 10 rivers, starting from Amudarya, Brahmaputra, Ganges, and Yellow River, and Yangtze in the China. So these 10 rivers are actually supporting 1.9 billion people in the region. And out of these 10, only 3, Ganges, Indus, and Yangtze, they are supporting around 1.5 billion. What a huge resource base we have. And these caps in our north, covered ice caps, I would say, the HKH and Tian Shan mountains, they all together form the largest area of the permanent ice cover outside the north and south. And this is our area. These ice capped mountains, they are usually termed as the third pole. But despite being such a huge resource of this water, are we water secure? The answer is no. These are the questions which I put to my class, usually during the lecture, that we have this much resources, but even then we are water stressed, water scarce, and the situation is growing, worsening with the every passing day. For instance, in Pakistan case, we are water stressed at the moment. And if this situation continues, we are going to be the water scarce by 2030. So where is SDG 6 then? It is not achieved. And same will be the case of failure in other SDGs. So we have to take the responsible decision in terms of water use and increase the water use efficiency. What is water security then? When we say we have enough water resources, but why are we not water secure? It is the capacity of the population to safeguard sustainable access to adequate amount of water and acceptable quality. In acceptable quality, this is the challenging question for us. This is the component. We have enough water, but not in good quality. And if you see around the world, around 2.1 billion people are still not having enough water, enough quality water. And there is a lot of discrepancies between the races, between different groups of the society, old age people, vulnerable people, kids and children and women. They are mostly, bearing the cost of this water insecurity in the region, in the globe, as well as in our region, in the HKH region. The reason being waterborne pollution and water-related disasters. And our systems, they are not so much resilient against these shocks. Like, take the example of waterborne diseases. I bet if we could supply clean drinking water, 50% of our beds in the hospital, they will be free from the patients. 50% of the patients and admissions in the hospital, they are coming from the waterborne diseases. This is our scenario. And I took this definition from the UN Water 2013, and it clearly explains that what we are facing in our region as well. Water security, the SDG dealing with the water security, clean water and sanitation is the SDG 6. It is also, like other SDGs, a very ambitious goal, and it is giving the ownership to everyone, that no one should be left behind. And there is a very crystal clear message that if we want, we have to be part of it to get the benefit of this water security. And if we are left behind, then the food security, climate action, uh, inequality reductions, and several other SDGs, they will be compromised. Among this SDG also covers the water quality, wastewater management, and reuse, along with the transboundary cooperation with the neighboring countries, ecosystem services, capacity building, and cooperation. These are the 6 SDGs, 5 rather, which are directly addressed if we could fulfill our responsibility regarding the clean water and sanitation. And unfortunately, due to less investments, a huge infrastructure requirement, we are not paying too much attention to this SDG. And I again bet on it. If we fail in this to address this SDG, we will be failing in all other SDGs. This is the basic human right, to have the clean and pure drinking water and in enough quantity. But just see the example around the world. 1 in every 4 schools globally, they don't have clean drinking water supply. Every year, every day, about 700 children below the age of 5, they die of diarrhea and other water-related diseases. 800 women, they die of due to lack of access to the clean quality drinking water. Similarly, if this practice continues, we are expecting or anticipating that business as usual scenario may end up with around 800 million people. They will be migrating due to the non-availability of the quality water. So just think of ourselves in the HKH. What we are the owner of the third pole outside the north and south. The biggest ice cap we have. But unfortunately, our reasoning doesn't stop. And illogical reasoning, both at the research and the policy level. And that we need to address. If we address the clean and quality drinking water and sanitation, several diseases, several problems, gender equality, good health and well-being, reduced inequalities. Now just think over it. Several children and women, rather than going to school, the children, they spend 3 to 6 hours in the queue to bring water for their families. So if we could bring water to their doorsteps by any means, then those children who are spending their time in the queues to bring the water for their families, they can go to the schools, and the quality education that would be addressed. Good health and well-being, they will be addressed automatically. Life on land and ecosystem services will be more comfortable. Gender equality and this bringing water, food, and most of the countries, it relies on the women and the children and the other old people, vulnerable communities. So these are the actually SDGs linked with this water thing. I am trying to actually develop the link that if we address the SDG 6, then these SDGs, 5 of others, they will be addressed automatically. And we don't need to invest resources in those. So only target 1 SDG. We have enough resources, but what is the problem with us? Our water use efficiency in the agriculture. And here you can see on the graph on the right side on your screen that several countries, their water use efficiency around the world, although it is decreasing in the developed countries, it is about 60% up to water use efficiency. The productivity per unit drop of per unit water, but in the developing country, it is nearly 38%. And same is in HKH region. And you can see in the graph, the several countries are performing better, like in Bhutan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. They are performing reasonably better. But the other and the fourth, India is performing at the 4th level, and then the Pakistan and Afghanistan, they are nearly at the bottom end. So these are the questions that we need to address. How can we increase the water use efficiency? The productivity per unit water. So these will be also the question of discussion that how can we do it and what interventions can we make to address the issue. On the other hand, if I take the example of Pakistan, we have 5 major crops, and the water consumption per crop, wheat is our staple crop, and then we spend around 39 million acre feet of water on the wheat crop. And altogether, this for major 5 crops, these are the cash crops, and the farmers are interested to cultivate these crops. And when they are approached to sow other crops like pulses, so they are a bit reluctant to do so. The reasons are many, the lack of access to the market and their prices. So these 5 major cash crops are a huge burden on our water resources. Out of around 175 million acre feet, 130 million acre feet is being consumed by these 5 major crops in Pakistan. And same is happening in the other countries. Wheat, cotton, rice, sugarcane, maize. So in that case, another stressor. On one hand, we have this much water use, less water use efficiency. And on the other hand, the climate change is, dwindling the scenario further. This is the work I am presenting here. I worked with the UNDP in 2017, that how much Pakistan's water sector is vulnerable to the climate change. And I pointed out several recommendations, both at educational level, at the technological level, and at the policy level. And this document is actually now the prime document for the Ministry of Climate Change, Government of Pakistan, and Ministry of Water and Power. So they always take assistance from this document. It is available on the UNDP website, and the whole report can be accessed, is accessible from there. So in case of climate change scenario, which is happening, and there is no doubt in it, we will need 19% more water, you can see here, in 2050, in every sector nearly, and especially in the agriculture. Although in the industry and municipalities, they are not demanding more water with the climate change, but agriculture, it will need around 19% more water compared with today. But the supply is same. Although the supply time are changing, but supply is same. So what we have to do, manage the demand side. So this is what we can do. We have to manage the demand rather than supply side. That is always the same, and it is not changing. But according to our demand, our management on demand side, that is perhaps putting questions both at the policymakers and the researcher, that what interventions at what level do we need. This is very good document, and currently it is both ministries are taking ownership of it. But how much it has been translated into practice? What measures we have adopted, both in agriculture? I mean, it is flood irrigation everywhere, and we are spending about 30 to 40% more water on every crops, and we are water-stressed country. So how to deal with the scenario? So these will be the questions that we need to address. And more critically, if we look at how much water we need for food, daily water requirements, for example, they are for 2 to 3 liters per person in drinking, domestic needs for clothing, bathing, and the other kitchen needs 20 to 30, 100, 300 liters, and on the food. But the most problematic is water needed to produce 1 kilo of wheat. We need 1,000 liters of water. Just imagine how much we are spending, how much the natural resource we are wasting on it. 1 kilo of rice will need 2,500 liters of water to produce 1 kilo of rice from the farm to the fork. But on the other hand, the vegetables, they need very little amount of water compared with these crops and these staple crops, around 300 liters per kilogram of vegetables. So what is the solution then? Agriculture diversification. We need to switch to the less water intensive crops. Switch from the sugarcane, switch from the cotton, wheat, rice, to the millet, to the vegetables, and to the pulses. All those, they will not be fulfilling our 100% nutritional requirements, but we will be, there is always trade-off. If we are getting one thing, then we may be at the losing end to some extent to the other SDG. So these are the actually very much concerned questions. If we go for agriculture diversification, we will save water and we will be improving the nutrition. What we are doing here in the HKH region, in most of the country, carbs in the morning coming from wheat or rice or maize. In the lunch, they are coming from the same wheat, rice, or maize. And in the evening, that is the same. So our food is not diversified, and this nutrition problem is actually the challenging due to this very much static kind of food. And our nutritional requirements are not fulfilled by eating these three types of crops. So this is another question that we must need to address at the regional level. This is the country level scenario, but this is happening all over. The second SDG, the another which is linked with the water, or the SDG 2, the SDG 6, the food security. This is the second SDG that I picked up for this discussion or for this talk. That what is food security? Why we are concerned about it? When everyone all the time have physical and economic access to the sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to fulfill the need and food preferences for healthy life, then we can say that is food secure country or the food secure person. But are we food secure? Before going into that details, let's have a discussions on the physical availability of food. It has 4 pillars: availability, access, utilization, and stability. Availability of food, it may be in enough supply, depending on the food production and what we are producing and how much we are producing at the country level and at the regional level and how much trade we are performing. We could have enough food, but it's economic and physical access to it. Food is there at the national and international level, so it doesn't mean itself that every household is food secure. It may be available to some people, physically or economically, and the poor household, they may not be able to access that. So that access is another issue. So if physically food is available and economically not accessible, we can't categorize that country or society into the food secure country or society. And thirdly, food utilization. Usually, it is understood that the way the body makes the most of various nutrients in the food, sufficient energy and nutrient intake by the individuals are taken, but combined with good biological utilization of food consumed, which becomes actually national nutritional status of the individual. If it is not fulfilling that, then it is of no use. And it doesn't fulfill the third pillar of the food security. And lastly, is the stability. Are the above 3 pillars mean the physical availability, economic and physical access to the food, and utilization? Are they stable? If you're getting food, enough food, and adequate food and nutritious food at one time, while the periodic basis, if you are not getting it, you are not food secure, and it will deteriorate your nutritional status. And weather conditions, political instability, economic factors, unemployment, and all these are actually may have an impact on your food pocket, on your food basket. Here are a few quotes from the Fidel Castro. The first one is regarding the food security. Nowhere in the world, in no act of genocide or in no war, are so many people killed per minute, per hour, and per day as those who are killed by hunger and poverty on our planet. And then came the Dr. Norman Borlaug, the father of Green Revolution, the man who has saved more life than any other person ever born. and he is here. So, gentleman, the father of green revolution. But we are ignoring it, not taking it seriously, both at society level, both at the country level, as well as at the regional level. The region, HKH, is full of natural resources, full of food commodity, full of water resources, but only problem is the mismanagement. And you might have heard that only the Indian Punjab and Pakistani Punjab, they have so much capability of agricultural production that they can feed the whole world. This is usually we were taught in the literature. But to explore that potential, that remains to the scientists and the policymakers and the technologists how to deal with it. When we talk about the regional scenario in the HKH region, where we stand, 30% of the population in HKH is food insecure, and around 50% malnutrition. And amongst those, women and children, they are at the forefront of the suffering. They are the more vulnerable, and they are uh, actually the more vulnerable segment of the society, which are facing the challenge of food insecurity. When we look at the few select countries that where we stand at the global scale, out of 113 countries which produce data on the food security, uh, these are the scenarios. Bangladesh rank 80 out of 113. In the second column, you can see India stands at 68 number out of 113 countries. Nepal stands at 74. Myanmar stands at 72, and Pakistan stands at 84. This is our overall scenario of the whole region. I mean, all the participating countries in that survey, which is economist, they develop the food sustainability or food security index yearly. And this is the most recent figure I have accessed yesterday from their website, that where the HKH countries stand in terms of food security. In terms of affordability, the situation is even worse due to economic things, economic and social affordability, access that is availability, production is a bit better and it is increasing, although it is available, but it is not affordable due to several factors like unemployment, total reliance on the agriculture sector over rural livelihoods, and quality and safety, they are always compromised. And the sustainability point of view, we are at the bottom, nearly. None of these three sectors, the three pillars of the food security, like availability, affordability, or access, and equality and safety, there is no sustainability in any of these. Anytime can happen anything: flood, climate triggered events, disasters, and unfortunately, we are not adopting to it as well. And we are not preparing enough ourselves to confront the vulnerabilities of the changing climate. And it is exacerbating and the situation is deteriorating with every passing day. And the, the timeline to achieve the sustainable development goals, whether it is SDG 6 on water or it is SDG 2 on zero hunger, the time is not too far. Only 8 years left in the ambitious agenda of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. But this is the scenario where we stand as a region. Then what could be done? Like I said, I picked up the SDG 6 for water. It addresses most of the SDGs. And another SDG 2, which is food security, it also addresses most of the SDG out of those 17 SDG. So it is a linking actually lever, powerful lever for sustainable development. And the closer we get to meet the SDGs 2, the closer we will be meeting and accomplishing the other SDGs. The food is a common thread linking all S7 SDGs because of socioeconomic and environmental dimensions of the food system. And the early policymakers, when perhaps immediately after the Millennium Development Goals, when they were drafting these sustainable development goals, they would have realized that reforming food system will provide a powerful lever for sustainable development and closer we get to meeting the SDGs. Here are the linkages and the SDGs that will be addressed through addressing the SDG 2. I mean, if we address the SDG 2, I always put this question to my class and the students that at least I get them familiarized with all the 7 SDGs. And then I give them the choice, please pick up one SDG and link with the others. How fixing the food problem or food security issue can be addressing to the good health and well-being. It is directly linked with it. That is SDG 3. Quality education, gender availability of water, sustainable cities and communities, sustainable consumption and production patterns, and combat climate change, because agriculture, our food system, is a huge contributor to the greenhouse gases and in the global warming. So if we fix this problem on sustainable basis, this action and our responsibility for the goal 3 or SDG 13, climate change will be addressed, and partnerships for the goal, collaborating with others to address these things. Now, take the example that are water and food secure around the world and which countries they have actually adopted the different mechanisms. Like in Denmark, first let's compare with the HKH region. We are eating enough, that is not nutritious. Many are overweight, others are stunted. It is taking place in nearly all around the world, but in our case, it is a bit more. I mean, the stunting and the overweight, obesity is increasing. So what they have done, the other countries, like in Denmark, the nutritional education is part of their curricula. How much we teach to our pupils, to our students in the classrooms, how much they should be concerned about it. All our junk foods, they are being sold on the shelves. And this is what is compromising the good health and well-being of our future generations. So how can we ensure the healthy lives and promote well-being for all, at all ages? That is a question mark. We are eating enough, but not enough nutritious food. On the other hand, if we talk about the sustainable consumption and production, we are producing enough. We are contributing enough greenhouse gases and contributing to the significant level to the global warming. But on the other hand, 1/3 of the food that is produced is either lost or wasted. What are we teaching to our students? If we talk about localizing the SDGs, we have to find the local solutions. And how much we are teaching to our students, that what do they need to do? Food wastage and food loss. Okay, loss is due to, different technological issues, but wastage is purely human. And if we could save 1/4 of the food lost and wasted, which is around 1.3 billion ton every year that is wasted. And if we could save 1/4 of it, none of the person will go hungry to the bed. Only 1/4 of that wasted food, if that is saved and given to the needy persons, but this is not happening in our region. Denmark has again taken up the responsibility. Korea has set up the best example. Any supermarket or any restaurant exceeding 400 square feet, they have to adopt the smart cooking practices, smart food practices, and they have to contribute the extra food to the charities which are dealing with the needy people, with the homeless people, with the nomadics, with the refugees, with the less privileged people, and all that food that is distributed on daily basis. This is also we need to do in our region as well. These can be startups. These are not the, I mean, just examples that no one can do it. Same the Londoner, they are also doing the same thing, same practice. Smart tag with their food items. And also, we need to change our dietary habits. When we change it, we will save the water. We will diversify crops. And when we diversify crops, we will switch to the less water intensive crops. So addressing one SDG 2, diversify food, nutritious food, will result in a good health and well-being. It may ensure the healthy lives and well-being of all people. Gender equality, mostly the women and children, they are always after the food for the family household, and they are less privileged all the time. Other old age people, they are also deprived of these basic necessities. They can also be addressed at this time. Sustainable cities and communities, sustainable consumption and production. So we will also be mitigating the impacts of climate change. If we diversify the cropping, we will be using less water to produce those crops, nutritious crops, resulting in a healthy diet, and also addressing these SDGs along with that. Some of these are directly linked with the SDG 2, and the others, they are indirectly addressed through when we go through that, SDG 2, zero hunger. Fixing food system. So what we conclude is that fixing food system is an opportunity for us. 149 million children under 5 years of age, they are stunted, while approximately 50 million children are overweight. And worldwide, this obesity has tripled over the last 40 years. So what we need to do? We need to learn the lesson from animals. We are human beings, and the animals, they eat only when hungry. Is very good example. Their diet is in front of them on these tigers, in front of the tigers, but they are not eating it. They will only eat it when they feel hungry. We must need to adopt this habit rather than wasting food. And so in that case, actually, if we are wasting, in fact, we are not doing justice to the less privileged people. And now we come to the very complex or interlinked phenomena of water, energy, and food security. These are the three sectors which are very much interlinked with each other. For instance, we need water for agriculture and food production. We also need water for energy needs, and we also use energy for food production and irrigation. And at the world scale, agriculture consumes 70% of fresh water. And food production consumes about 30% of the energy. But in Pakistan, as I said in the very beginning, that we are using over 90% of fresh water. And in my, as far as I know, in all other Himalayan countries, the situation is not better, where agriculture consuming around 90% of the fresh water and of the total energy that is used by the agriculture. So what is happening? Demand on water and energy is increasing because the population is growing up, and increasing temperature due to climate change. That is also taking place at the same time. So we can't take water and food security in isolation. If we want to address the issue, we have to understand the linkages between these three: water, energy, and food security next. This is also the approach that complex interactions between water, energy, and food security need to be or are essential with the changing climate and for achieving the SDGs. And here, I believe I can again stress that SDG 6 and SDG 2, they address the other SDG to some extent. And more we put the efforts and energies in these two SDGs, we will be more comfortable to achieve the target, or at least we will be on the right track in addressing the other SDGs. The key stressors in the HKH, the climate change is at the top of the list, and human conflicts like other regions in the world, we are facing in the HKH as well, and globalization, infrastructure, migration, tourism, and increasing urbanization, the movement from the rural to the city centers, to the urban areas, they are the challenging issue. And what is happening when this mass migration is happening? There would be trade-offs between different these interplays, complex drivers of the change, like depleted natural resources. This is what's happening. We have devastated our natural resources to the maximum, whether it be a land, fertile land, or water resources. Fertile land, we are harvesting the trees and forests for agricultural crops. And similarly, we are putting the fertile agricultural land under the infrastructure. Moreover, deforestation is taking place at an accelerated rate. What is happening in Pakistan, we are already far behind the international standards to have about more than 20% of the land under forest cover, and we have only 5%. But despite this fact that we are far below in the region in terms of forest land, we are cutting the trees at a very, very alarming rate. And what happens? These deforested slopes and lands, they cause the landslides, and they destroy the arable land and decline the food production. Moreover, the restricted cross-border food movement and interprovincial ban on food commodities. In Pakistan, this takes place. Many provinces, for example, Punjab, it produces wheat and is a rich source of wheat production. But until and unless it fulfills its own need at provincial level, the wheat movement to the other provinces is not allowed. Same is case with the other provinces. If they owe any natural resource, they are not giving it to the neighboring provinces. So this is another problem. This is not only happening in Pakistan, but this is also taking place in other countries. Inadequate supply of safe drinking water, sanitation and hygiene. This is also another issue that we need to address. Mountainous communities, they are always ignored. And we have around 240 million people living in the mountains, and they get their livelihoods from the mountainous communities and mountainous ecosystems. But in the policy making, they are usually ignored. If we see at the regional level, when the challenges comes up, opportunities are also there. If we have disasters, and we need to collaborate with each other to tackle those things, we need to do regional integration. Why only the regions, they prosper, not countries. So we have to put some concerted efforts to deal with these kind of disasters. Climate change, it is a global problem, and we have to join hands with the neighbors and the global community. We have committed to address it. So these are the challenges, but as a consortium, we can deal with it. And same response as the world responded to the corona, the same can be done in terms of these challenges: disasters, poor governance, poverty, water scarcity, poor economic development, political instability, ecosystem degradation, pollution. All these are issues in this region. But on the right side, you can see the opportunity. When the challenge is there, it always comes with opportunity. And opportunity is regional integration. We need to cooperate with the neighbors and with the other countries in the region to prosper. Technology innovations. If one country has a technology or innovations, it must do the capacity building of the neighboring to have the same benefit, to reap the same benefits out of that technology. Sharing the resources, renewable energy, ecotourism, all these are the opportunities which will be happening, which are happening, and this is the potential. Our job is only to exploit it and to get benefit out of these opportunities. But if we sit idle and just crying that we are unable to achieve the agenda of 2030, then it will be of no use. The time is just gone, only 8 years left to achieve that agenda. Although they are already ambitious goals, over ambitious goals, and we may not be able to reach those like MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, SDGs are not going to achieve, but at least we should put ourselves on the track. And cultural diversity development in the horticulture, if unsustainable agriculture is there, that is a challenge in the region, then why not go for the other horticultural crops? Improved food security. If the population is growing, we have excessive land to cultivate the crops as per our need. Then what is happening here? Every country has set up its own track and its own ambitious track, I would say. For example, Pakistan plans to progress into upper middle class. Currently, we have around $1,800 per capita income. And in that case, we want to switch to the upper middle class by 2050 by addressing SDG, particularly the hunger and poverty and education, clean water and sanitation, and modern energy services. Regarding these modern energy services, considerable progress has been made at not at the industrial level, but at the household level, I would say, and at the institutional level. Like in my university, ComSat University, Islamabad, we have around 45,000 student enrollment, and we have 7 campuses around the country. And we are aiming to be completely switched to the solar system by 2028 in the next 6 years. And we are extensively working on that how to go to the alternate energy systems. And these are the actually targets given by the federal government to the different institutes who have the capacity to switch to the alternate energy sources. And ComSat University has accepted this offer, and we are working on that we may become on renewable energy by 2028. Similarly, the China, it is people-centric innovation, all is happening. It is coordinated and concerted effort and shared development. They are considering as an important 2030 agenda and for promoting sustainable development. Nepal, inclusiveness approach is adopting. Welfare and prosperity are reported as the fundamentals for Nepal to become middle income country by 2030. So these are the few tracks and agendas that different countries in the region, they have adopted and they are working on it. Similarly, the Myanmar, they want to switch from the agriculture to the service sector and industry to achieve the SDG goal of 2030 development agenda. But there is no very simple rule and very simple pathway to achieve these objectives. So these are the multiple actions which need to be followed simultaneously at the regional scale. And I have taken these 2 paths from the book by the EC Mode, where they clarify that how the region can prosper. On the pathway 1, they have described actually 2 pathways towards a prosperous HKH region. Pathway 1, large-scale investments with the naturally available resources and with a high priority to the centralized large-scale power, communication, infrastructure, and development projects. And major focus would be on the water and energy. They are going to be the critical for ensuring energy success and food security in the region. This is one of the pathways. And the third component of the first pathway is the communication and mobility that enhance infrastructure, trade and cross-border resource sharing. And one of the best example is the One Belt, One Road, or this CPAC thing to improve the communication and mobility across the region. This would be the first pathway. The second pathway, bottom-up investment from smaller projects on the energy and water through higher prioritization and decentralizing the things, giving it to the local and the national development actions and projects. However, this will require more involvement of a large number of developmental and social actors, both at the national and subnational scale. Also, it would be requiring a multi-level governance structure. Evolution plans to the local scale will be needed to address the local diversity, to mobilize the financial resources for a large number of projects of different scales. These are the different SDGs And several countries have actually, they are by choice for some countries. There are 17 is all together, and there are different indicators under the each SDG. But in case of Nepal, for example, they are not taking up the SDG 14, life below water. They haven't taken it. So they can explain why they are not taking it up. So in this one, these are the total indicators, and out of it, Pakistan has committed to our reporting indicators. Out of 247, we are reporting on 193 indicators under different SDGs, right from the SDG 1 to the SDG 17. But despite the commitment that we are reporting on these 193, the total indicators so far we are working on, they are 95. But from the international data and the international resources, the actual figure on the right side is 38, the total indicators that world realized that Pakistan is progressing significantly on these. And this situation is not very good in other neighboring countries as well, despite the best efforts have been put by the India and Nepal regarding the food security, for example, but they may be lacking on the other SDGs. And my colleagues can confirm from them that which SDGs are they prioritizing. But this is the scenario for Pakistan, that despite of 193 SDA indicators commitments, we are delivering on 95 as per our national reports. But according to the international reports, we are delivering only on 38 indicators. What is the situation of this food security in Pakistan? This actually, SDG 2, is of my great concern. And when we look in the Pakistani scenario, around 84% people are food secure in Pakistan, according to the latest data of 2019 and 20. 21 and 22 is still awaited, but this is our case. Where we are lacking, major challenge of meeting food security and nutritional targets by 2030. And I suspect we will be losing on this end. The average food supply in the country is insufficient, is not meeting the demand. Even on supply side, we are lacking behind. Like this year, our domestic need for wheat is about 28 million ton per annum, and we produced only 100 million ton. Over 1/5 of the total population is undernourished, and 1/3 of the children are underweight. So on the right side, you can say the sustainability, availability, access, and utilization, they are all compromised in terms of food security in the country. Agriculture and food security, livelihood in Pakistan, they are linked to the local food systems, employing 39% of the total labor force and contributing around 21% to the GDP. In the Pakistan diet, cereals, they are the major contributor toward the food calories, and Pakistan population has doubled in the last 2 decades at a rate of 2% per year and is expected to increase up to 244 million by the cutoff date of Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 and 300 maybe by 2050. At the same time, life expectancy is increasing, and this exponential growth will put extra burden on our agricultural system. And apart from that, the climate change, SDGs 13, which is of great concern to all around the world, and the COP27 is also taking place on it. And this climate change, on this graph, you will see every arrow is going to the agriculture sector. Climate change comes up with different diseases, weeds, heat waves, droughts. So it will be affecting human health, water scarcity, and ultimately the agriculture sector will be impaired. Farm efficiency will be lost. Resource scarcity will be happening, and conflicts on water, land, and resources, this may be taking place in the coming years and decades. What are the challenges? These are our internal challenges. Most of our farming community, they are illiterate, and they lack the technical knowledge to understand and more scientific methods of agriculture to improve it. They are least interested and they don't want to adopt. Financial constraints, poverty, small land holdings. 95% of our farming community, they are the small landholders, and they are unable to buy the expensive modern technologies. Economies of scales, again, the fragmentation of land, it limit the adoption of modern agriculture technologies. Low land and water productivity. Water use efficiency is very much little and less, below 40%, and the use of traditional agriculture and irrigation practices. These are our major issues hampering our agriculture system and the linked food security. What else they do? The farming community, they get the credit, but they don't use it for agriculture purposes. And they don't use it to improve their farm productivity, to buy the machinery, but it can go to the other social nests, I mean the weddings and their school fees. So all these things, all the agriculture credit approved by the banks, that is not diverted to the agriculture, but non-agricultural means. Similarly, the extension services are not well connected, and the scope is also limited. Post-harvest losses, they are always there, and none of the country in the region claim perhaps to reduce the post-harvest losses below 20%. Limited capacity on the value addition. It is just conventional agriculture, and it is taking place since centuries, and the farmers are not adopting to the modern technologies. Actions, what can be done? Towards sustainable agriculture, food security, inclusive, healthy, and climate resilient food system, we need to adopt several approaches. First, for example, is the climate smart agriculture. Nature-based solutions, if we want to combat the climate change triggered vulnerabilities. Climate smart food systems, sustainable land management, agroecology, sustainable agriculture, and landscape approach, sustainable intensification, integrated natural resource management, not only picking up one natural resource and managing it and avoiding the others or ignoring the others. It will not fulfill the problem, or it will not be enough for us. Climate smart agriculture, it addresses the it has three pillars, and for example, the adopting and building resilience to climate change. What is climate smart agriculture? We can say this agriculture is climate smart if it is adopting and resilient to climate change, if it is sustainably increasing the agricultural productivity and ensuring food security and incomes. And thirdly, it is reducing or removing the greenhouse gases. If these three conditions are not met, then we can't categorize that into the climate smart agriculture. Every individual has to work on it, and my institute and my university is continuously and very actively engaged in such kind of activities in the HKH region. More recently, we have developed hundreds of farmers in Nepal, Bhutan, and Pakistan on climate smart agriculture practices. First, we have about 3 years visits to the farm fields, just seeking their inputs, how they consider the climate change and the food security. After taking their input and analyzing and identifying the climate smart agriculture practices, we trained those farmers, agriculture officers, and extension workers that if the changing climate, how they can adopt into it. And more recently, in 20th July, actually, I was the lead of this project. The funding was provided by the Asia Pacific Network, and my collaborator partners were the Nepal Agroforestry Foundation, Royal University of Bhutan, Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, Hamburg University in Germany, and Karakoram International University in Gilgit-Baltistan. These are actually the efforts, although they are little efforts, but they are contributing towards the betterment of our farming class. These are a few snapshots from those workshops in Bhutan, Nepal, and Pakistan. All these are farming class, and I've been traveling to these countries off and on. And as a part of this exercise, the one thing which was missing that was the training manuals on climate smart agriculture. We developed these climate smart agriculture manuals, starting from the very basic information on climate change and food security to the complicated linkages between food, energy, and agriculture and climate. All these manuals, we developed under this project. And later on, the farmer and agriculture officers and extension workers, they were trained on the basis of these manuals. Now they become actually the guiding tools for the extension and agriculture department. Whenever they go to the field, they identify any problem, they may find the solution in these manuals. And also, to facilitate the farmers, we developed these manuals in their local languages in Bhutan, Nepal, and Pakistan. In Pakistan, we developed in Urdu, and in Bhutan, Bhutani language, and in Nepalese language, we have developed these manuals for the farmers. Even if they're less educated, at least they should understand it. But for the agriculture officers and extension workers, we developed these manuals in English. Along with that, the main problem in our AH region is that climate change is not mainstream at tertiary level education. And currently, I am consulting an INGO, and I have been given the task that how to mainstream climate change in academia and research. And as a part of this, we have had a planning workshop during the last month here in Islamabad, where all the stakeholders, including academia, higher education commission, policymakers, and other stakeholders, they were gathered to discuss that how can we upgrade our curricula where the climate change would be integrated into our existing teaching modules, rather than starting a new separate degrees on climate change. But because it is affecting each and every sector, right from the agriculture to food security, to the water, to the health, so why not? It should be part of teaching schedule in all the existing degree programs. This is the project I have spotted out the universities where we should be working in the coming years, at which university can be engaged and what kind of training the teaching staff at the university will be needed. So we will be doing this training in the coming years and months. When we identify the problems, certainly the issues are there. What do we need to do? We need the technological transformation in agriculture sector. Not only to meet the growing food demands, but also to manage the challenges of climate change, deteriorating natural resources, and losing the biodiversity. We need to transfer these things according to these requirements. In the past, the efforts have been made to boost the agriculture just to produce more food, but now we need nutritious food. Root causes of hunger and malnutrition. We don't need only the enough food, we need nutritious and sufficient food, but how can we do it? We need certain transfer ways. The way we produce, process, distribute, and consume food must become wholly sustainable and contribute to the healthy and affordable diets. As a driving force to transfer the food system, innovation is central to uplift the farming class out of poverty, unemployment for the youth, because the youth are getting out of the agriculture system and we need to get them back onto the track. So what actions can be done? Reroute the farming system and rural livelihood to new trajectories. And these are the 4 pillars that we need to address in the action areas. We need to de-risk it. We need to realign our priorities. We need to reduce and we need to reroute. In case of rerouting, both reduce emission and make it climate resilient agriculture. De-risk the livelihood, farm and value chain to deal with the increasing vulnerabilities of weather and extreme events. Similarly, we need to reduce the emissions from the diets and value chains, targeting health and climate outcomes. And we also need to revisit our policies, finance, and support for the innovation to facilitate action in the above action areas. Here is the example. How do we need realign? Business as usual, if it is there, is not going to take place. No transformation is there. But if we need to make it climate resilient and low emission practices. We need to adopt and we need to invest into it. And then it will result in the healthy and sufficient food with the low food loss and waste, as well as with the low emissions. Zero agriculture land expansion on high carbon. Stop harvesting the trees and bringing more and more land under the cropping systems. Secondly, enable the markets and the public sector actions to incentivize the climate resilient and low emission practices. And this can be achieved through the climate smart agriculture practices. So what will happen with the climate smart agriculture? For three pillars: adaptation and resilience, increase the productivity on sustainable basis, and reduce the greenhouse gas emission, that is the mitigation process to tackle the climate change. De-risk the livelihoods, secure resilient livelihood and value chain through early warning system and adaptive safety nets. Help the farmers make better choices. The climate services, they should be reaching at their doorstep through different technologies regarding the weather conditions so that they can plan more effectively regarding their cropping and harvesting of the crops. Reduce emissions, shift to healthy and sustainable climate-friendly diets, incentivize reduction in the consumption of meat. I'm not sure if in other countries, if there is any no meat days, but in Pakistan, we observe Tuesday and Wednesday, this is no meat day in the country. And this is happening for the last 30 years. So it is better to switch to the veggie diet for some time during the week and reduce the emissions from the livestock and these kind of foods. Food loss and waste, reduction in the food loss and waste in the major supply chain, where the greenhouse gases and they are at the peak. Realign the policies, implement policies and institutional changes that enable the transformation. Unlock the sustainable finance to address the SDGs, drive social change for more sustainable decisions. Youth, as I said, they are getting away from the agriculture and agribusiness, but if they are given any appealing thing to the science-based social movements, then they can transform. They have the capacity to transform this agriculture system. Similarly, transform innovation system to deliver impacts at the higher scale, significantly change the approach of public and agriculture research for R&D funds. They need to be improved if we really want to address the SDG 2 and zero hunger. What is the current status of innovation? There are several INGOs and national NGOs, like National Incubation Center. They always welcome the startups, like Ignite. Agriculture innovation is rapidly evolving with the introduction of the modern tools, ICT-based solutions, and artificial intelligence. Now, the farmers in the remote areas, they can get the weather information, they can get their soil quality, even a single click on their mobile phone. They have several applications through these startups. They are gone through that. Updated policies and action plans at the federal as well as at the provincial level that must fulfill the need for technological transformation in agriculture sector. And more recently, the Prime Minister Agriculture Emergency Program here in Pakistan, it has boosted and contributed significantly to uplift agriculture, particularly the livestock and three major cash crops, as well as the oilseed crops. We are the net importer of the oilseed, and the Prime Minister's program to initiate the oilseed crops locally, that was very warm welcomed by the farmers, and we are on the right track. And perhaps in the coming 5 to 6 years, we may be somewhere in the middle. The 50% of our current import of oilseed may be fulfilled through our local produce. Increasing opportunities for agricultural startups like National Incubation Center, Higher Education Commission, and Technology Fund, and Agri-Surge Innovation Center by the FAO. All these are where the welcoming with the new ideas in agribusiness and agri things. Towards the end of this, what do we need to do? Regarding the technology and precision, we need to ensure sustainable use of natural resources, land, water, particularly increase the productivity through delivery of quality inputs, credit and services, reduce the harvest and post-harvest losses from the farm to the fork, promote the non-traditional farming segments, practices, and crops and livestock, and increase the resource efficiency to food security and contribute to mitigate the climate change. At the policy level, HKH countries and institutions, they must come together to build the mechanisms and different fora at the regional scale for cooperation and cross-learning. The expertise and the technologies available in one country, they could be available to benefit by the other country. This cooperation is also needed for the relevant opportunities and experiences and expertise. Regional organization, for example, SARC, although it is gone dead for the time being, but such forums like this, they can be activated for at least to addressing the common issues. Local institutions through decentralization. And here in Pakistan, we have devolved all the powers to the provinces. The central has very limited powers like in defense and the other economy, but all other policies, including even climate change policies, they are gone. The power, higher education commission policy, they are gone to the provinces. So this devolution of the power is mandatory if we want real change in our region. Climate resilient agriculture and water management across all policy areas, they should be given the priority. And regional connectivity need to be the embedded in our policies thing. And CPAC and One Belt Road, One Belt Road are the few examples of this regional connectivity. More regional connectivity, more market access, and more innovation and technologies coming out. So at the end, when we say before finishing the class that, okay, what, where, and what I can contribute. So everyone has equal responsibility. No one is left behind in 2030 agenda. So where we stand, each of us and each of you, when you go back to the class, we must think and we must nurture our future generation, our students, that how can they contribute? If they are part of, for example, civil society, they can demand action from the government and private sector. They can build the awareness and collective action and representation in the government systems. The government is not run by the angels or some other creature. These are the human beings. This is civil society who run the governments and different functionaries of that. So if we are part of that, and if we are part of, and we are sure we are part of it, then we must contribute at that scale. Countries, they should prioritize their food system. Transformation, they should try to transform, reduce the greenhouse gas emission. They should be adoptable and comprehensively sustainable, and that should be part of the next reporting of nationally determined contributions. Climate resilient practices, they should be propagated through public-private partnerships and market development. Research and community, this is what we are. We are sitting in silos, we need to break them up. We embrace failure, what have been lacking in our research and teaching, and we can recall with that how to create an ecosystem for innovation. Always, the innovative technology is not stopped if you share it with someone. It is always expanded, and this expansion is always for the betterment of the humanity and the humankind, and at the end, our own culture and region. International Development Organization, they also need to reconcile their goals of development agenda. Research and policy gaps, they need to be addressed. The most important part are the farmers and the farming class and the peasant families. They organize their network and improve information access to negotiate with the industry and the government. What the industry need, they should produce what the industry want and what the government want. And the government, they must set up the policy that should be the farmer friendly as well. And the businesses, they should recognize huge opportunities in implementing food related SDGs, where they can earn more in a more sustainable way, as well as innovating and transferring technologies at the same time. So these are the few transformative actions in the food system. But one message before you leave or before we end up this discussion. When we go back to the classes, I have highlighted the food waste and loss as the major challenge for our food security in the region. Can we appoint the food loss ambassador and the water ambassador at class level, at the university level, at the college level, at the street level, at the community level. So these are the things that we need to teach to our students, that they should also take the responsibility to help the nations, the regions, the world in achieving these ambitious goals of sustainable development by 2030.